Hi guys. So, as I told you in my previous video, I am here with my cousin and we will be discussing two very mysterious disappearances. They're kind of similar to each other. My cousin here, she is a person that grew up with me. So you guys were wondering about, sometimes I see in the comments about my family, and this is some of my family. I brought it here today. So I will have a story for you guys, and then my cousin also has a story as well. My cousin's name is Marina. Hi. So I will be also crocheting the kitty coaster that I've been crocheting for the past 4 videos because I can't come up with any other pattern. But I promise you guys that there will be a new pattern next video. It's easy for me to remember this pattern. It's just in my head all the time. But the story that I have for you today is a very mysterious disappearance of the Fort Worth trio in Texas. Mary Rachel Trulika, who was only 17 years old. Lisa Renee Wilson, who was 14 years old. And Julie Ann Mosley, who was only 9 years old. All mysteriously vanished from Fort Worth Seminary South Shopping Center on December 23rd, 1974. Mary, who went by the middle name Rachel, and Lisa, who went by the middle name Renee, were best friends, and they wanted to do some last-minute Christmas shopping. Julie was the younger sister of Renee's boyfriend, and she asked to tag along with the pair because she was bored and didn't want to spend the day alone. Because Renee in particular was planning to attend a Christmas party with her boyfriend at the time, when the girls didn't return to their respective homes on time, it prompted their families to conduct a search. They found Rachel's car in the parking lot, and the car was full of layaway items that were picked up by Renee prior to going to the mall. The girls were nowhere to be seen. The families waited at the mall all night, but the girls never showed up. Several witnesses claimed to have seen the girls that day. After a whole night of waiting, the girls were still nowhere to be seen, and this is when police was contacted. According to a few accounts, the girls were seen accompanied by a security guard at the mall, or they were seen getting into a vehicle that had security on the side of it. One witness even came forward and said that they saw the girls being forced into a pickup truck by 2 men 2 days later. Rachel's husband, and yes, she had a husband at 17 years old. At the time, he received a letter mysteriously addressed to him. The letter was from Rachel, and the letter said, "I know I'm gonna catch it, but we had to get away. We're going to Houston. See you in about a week. The car is in Sears upper lot. Love, Rachel." The letter was addressed to Thomas A. Trulika, which is not what Rachel would call her husband. She would refer to him as Tommy. So that was really weird. Another suspicious detail was that the author of the letter misspelled the name Rachel at first, and they spelled it with an E initially, and they went back over it with an L afterwards instead. The letter was examined by many handwriting experts, but with no conclusive results. I would assume that Rachel would definitely not forget how to spell her name. The police initially thought that the girls were runaways, but their parents knew that their kids would never do that, so they didn't believe that. Plus, all the kids were super excited for Christmas, especially the 9-year-old. The parents began to believe that the girls were abducted. After 3 months, police still didn't have anything to go on, and this is when parents decided to take matters into their own hands. The parents hired a private investigator. The private investigator received a tip that the girls might have been murdered under the local bridges. The investigator, whose name was John Swaim, gathered 100 volunteers to search in Port Lavaca, Texas, under the bridges. In 1975, so a year later, a new suspect was discovered. It was a 28-year-old man who was allegedly making harassing and odd phone calls to women who applied at the store where he was working. Rachel had applied at the store shortly before she went missing. As promising as this lead seemed, nothing came of it, unfortunately. So John Swaim kept investigating. In 1976, skeletal remains of 3 individuals were discovered in Brazoria County in Texas by an oil drilling crew. John had the remains checked by the dental records and x-rays, and that too came to a dead end. Turned out that the bodies belonged to some other missing individuals. John Swaim, who was investigating the case until the end, unexpectedly died in 1979 of drug overdose. His death was ruled as suicide, and get this, that upon his death, he ordered that all the files that he was working on this case be destroyed after his death. That is really strange, to my opinion. Sadly, whatever he had discovered in his final moments died with him, so we'll never know what he discovered. Multiple other witnesses have come forward since then. One woman said that she saw the girls being forced into a yellow pickup truck with lights on top of it. It was near Buddy's grocery store at the mall. However, after the tip, police could not locate the witness that said this, so the story could not be verified. In 2001, the case was officially reopened by investigators. The same year, former Fort Worth policeman and security guard at the mall at the time came forward, and he reported that he saw the 3 girls with a young male security guard that day inside a pickup truck. He said they appeared perfectly at ease and were even laughing. And he also mentioned that this happened around 11:30 p.m., super late in the night. According to this former policeman, he contacted police after he found out there's missing person posters about these girls, but police never followed up. And also in 2001, police did find the young security guard in question. However, of course, he denied that the girls were ever in his vehicle. I mean, why would he agree to this? In 2018, 2 sunken cars were raised from Benbrook Lake, and it was a possible connection to the case because they found some bodies inside those cars that were like teenagers, skeleton remains. But after examination, it was found that the car or the remains were not connected to the case. 48 years later, and we still have no answers. The fate of Renee, Rachel, and Julie remain to be one of the most puzzling and mysterious cases. The remaining family members are still hopeful that one day they'll have definitive answers about what happened to the girls. What do you think happened to them?
I was thinking about it, and for some reason, I feel like the older girls maybe got enticed by like alcohol or drugs, but then the younger one didn't go along with it, and then something happened to her, and then they all felt like they would be punished, so they just decided to run away or something.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know, that's what came to mind.
Yeah, because of that letter.
Yeah, and also because the different reports of how at first they were forced into a car, and all of it sounded like a security car, and then afterwards it seemed like they were enjoying themselves or whatever.
Yeah, and then they looked like they were enjoying themselves. It's just weird. It was like 11 p.m. too.
Right.
I was actually also surprised that it was 11:30 p.m. And then before that, the story is that the family members were waiting for them all night at the mall. So that means that the family members were there at the mall when they were seen with the security guard as well, which I thought was weird because they would have probably seen them too.
Yeah, and then with the investigator, I feel like maybe he found out what happened, but maybe he got threatened about it or something. It's because he felt bad for the girls that were like the older girls or something. Oh, I wonder if they got trafficked or something.
Oh man. And then he was probably threatened. Like if you say anything, then you're gonna die too. And that's why he killed himself. What do you guys think? That sounds really sketchy to me.
Well, that's why I think that he was trying to protect the older girls, because I feel like something happened to the younger girl and the older girls like felt like they had to hide because they would be blamed for it or something.
So you think that the older girls are still alive? Is that what you're saying? Like they maybe changed their names or something?
Yeah.
Because
No, that's just my theory. Maybe I've watched too many movies.
them with the security guard, it just makes me think of like Ted Bundy's situation. I don't know if you know, but he used to pretend like to be like a police officer.
Oh, yeah.
And then he would like people get inside this car and he would kind of handcuff them there and then said you can't leave anywhere. So it just made me think of Ted Bundy when I found out that they were seen by a security guard. Yeah, that security guard is very sketchy, and I wasn't sure, like, there was no more information about that too. They just asked them, you didn't do this, okay, bye, have a good life. What? Did they, like, question him more? Did they do interrogation on him? I don't know, that's kind of suspicious.
That's what makes me think that it had something to do with human trafficking, because there's so many like organizations involved in that, including some.
And yeah, so that's why maybe like the police was also involved in that too. That makes sense. Let's talk about your story, Marina.
Okay. This cold case dates back to nearly 40 years. In October 1984, a young woman named Kim Sue Leggett mysteriously 21 years old and worked as a secretary at the Cotton Gin that was owned by her father-in-law. She had worked at the position for several years. She was described as a star employee. She worked hard and was always timely. On October 9th, 1984, around 4:45 p.m., Kim's stepfather received an alarming phone call from a caller who seemed to be changing his voice to make his tone lower and sound more ominous. The caller allegedly stated that they have abducted their daughter and want ransom money. According to reports, the caller said that Kim was not armed at the moment, but if the parents didn't cooperate, then something might happen to their daughter. The kidnapper stated that he would only release their daughter if a ransom was received. Originally, Kim's stepdad believed that the call was a joke and told the caller not giving much money for girls these days. Before hanging up the phone, the parents thought it was a prank being pulled by their own daughter, as she had a wild and dark sense of humor. Still concerned that the call may not have been a joke, the parents called their daughter at the gin and received no answer. When the stepfather arrived at the gin mill, they found the place unlocked and Kim's college books inside on her desk with a calculator still on. Moreover, her car was still parked by the mill with the keys in the ignition and purse inside the car. This was unusual for Kim, as she always kept her purse on her. Her family couldn't find Kim despite their searching efforts, and they began reaching out to friends and coworkers, hoping someone might have seen her that day. After days of worry, and without a word about Kim's possible location, her parents and her husband, now frantic with worry, finally contacted police and reported her missing. This is when witness testimonies were collected. The investigators found that around 4:30 p.m. on the day of Kim's disappearance, a customer came in for a product order that they needed assistance with. This customer was a regular and interacted with Kim frequently when he came in. The customer stated that during their exchange, nothing seemed out of the ordinary, and Kim was as cheerful as usual. As the customer was leaving, the customer saw Kim standing in the parking lot. As the customer was leaving, the customer saw Kim standing in the parking lot with two unidentified men. There was also a white sports car next to them. The customer stated that, judging by her body language and the way she appeared to be communicating with them, Kim seemed annoyed and possibly even offended. However, he said that she didn't seem to show any signs of fear or looking like she is in danger. The stepfather received the weird phone call 15 minutes after the customer left the parking lot, around 5 p.m. Before Kim's stepfather arrived, there was another customer that came in for help and reported that nobody was at the facility and the doors were unlocked. According to the timeline of events, investigators believed that Kim was abducted in the short time between being seen by the customer in the parking lot and her parents receiving the alarming phone call. The following day, searches began to find any trace of Kim. A few days after this, Kim's parents received a letter at their home with no return address. The letter was asking for $250,000 in ransom. Kim's parents realized that the letter was written in Kim's handwriting, which was a sign that Kim was still alive. After investigators ran tests on the letter, it was confirmed that the letter was in fact written by Kim, but with another person's writing on the outside of the envelope. envelope. However, the evidence didn't bring any suspects. Kim also had an infant son with her husband. Kim's husband was initially considered a suspect, but was soon cleared. To this day, there have been no further developments in Kim's case, and her whereabouts remain a mystery. It should be noted that the kidnappers never followed up on either the phone call or the letter, and at one point Kim's family offered $130,000 in exchange for any information, leading to an arrest. What do you think?
We kind of looked in further into the story prior to the filming this and found out that her stepdad was actually involved in some kind of drug selling operation.
Her stepdad was in the Air Force, and there's a theory that he got approached by drug smugglers that wanted him to smuggle some drugs across the Mexico border, and he refused. This might have been retaliation for refusing to work.
Why would the stepdad receive the phone call, not mom? I mean, it was probably just called on a house phone because it was 1984, so they didn't have cell phones. But I guess the stepdad picked up the phone. But the fact that he went there himself, not the mom, I don't know. I feel like the stepdad was involved in some way in there as well. The husband, I don't know. It's just like either the stepdad or the husband. I don't know. There's not that much information about this case.
Yeah, I think the drug cartels were probably involved, since that's a theory, and it said that there's not enough evidence to support this theory, but that theory makes the most sense to me. I also thought it was weird that her husband ended up getting a divorce from her after she wasn't found.
Yes, another fact that we forgot to mention, that we found it later on when we were researching, that her husband actually got a divorce a year later after, he figured that she's not going to be back. So he didn't want to wait for her and decided to get a divorce from her. That was really weird to me. Made me think that he was also involved somehow. A loving husband or, spouse, you still have hope that the person will be found, or any family member, and getting a divorce means you're just cutting off all the ties with that person completely. Like, you are sure that that person won't be back.
Sounds like cartel and human trafficking, maybe.
What do you guys think about this, both of these stories? Do you agree with our theories about what happened to them? They're both very mysterious, and there's not that much information for both stories. That's why it's kind of hard to tell what really happened. But yeah, both stories are not very popular either, so we weren't able to find that much online. We couldn't even find a letter for the Kim Leggett story. There's no letter that exists online if you look it up, which is really odd to my opinion.
Yeah, I wanted to know how the kidnappers demanded the payment, what form of payment, or how they wanted to be contacted, but I couldn't find any information on that, and I just found stuff that implied that they didn't provide any way to contact them or to pay them, and that the parents were ready to pay them, but they couldn't because they didn't know how.
Yeah, it's a very twisted story.
When I think about it, that makes me feel even more like it was the cartel, and like they didn't actually want ransom, and it was just revenge. Or like there was even something more sketchy going on with the stepdad.
Yeah, I feel like the stepdad was definitely the number one suspect. He was probably not the person that, took her. Maybe he was. Because another thing is, he's the one that received the phone call. And then he's the one that went to get her. Nobody saw her after him. I mean, he came there and she was already gone, apparently. But who knows? Maybe he's the one that took her. There was apparently one customer that saw her also prior to him getting there. But I mean, how credible are these customers? I don't know. Might have been his friend or something. It might be anybody that went, and stepdad is definitely involved. I feel like, not 100%, because we don't know the full story, but it just seems very sketchy situation. This place, the gin mill, is actually, we looked it up on the map, and it's like in the middle of nowhere. There's nothing around it for like miles and miles and miles. It's in a desert and in the middle of nowhere. So she was by herself in this gin mill. Somebody found out, somebody that tried to get revenge. I mean, it was not hard to get her because she's 21 years old, student, working in this gin mill by herself in the middle of nowhere.
It's suspicious that they let her be there completely by herself as a 21-year-old woman with a 1-year-old child.
Exactly. She just had a child too, and all of a sudden she's like there by herself. But give your opinions in the comments for sure, because we don't know. These are two mysterious cases. The trio from Texas as well, and it's actually so happens that both cases happened 10 years apart. So it was like 74 and 84. And at that time, it was like, if you disappear from the parking lot, chances are you probably got human trafficked or something. If there's no security footage, there's no phone. I feel like a lot of people disappeared from parking lots in those days. What do you think?
Oh, yeah.
It's like one of those places that is like easy to kidnap a person from.
Yeah, I forgot there was no phones to trace.
Yeah,
it was so much easier to kidnap people.
Yeah, CCTV footage is now everywhere, so now you can find out at least what the person was doing prior to their disappearance. But in these cases, we don't know anything, what they were doing. Only the witnesses. I don't know if they're credible. They're just, some people that said that they were there, but who knows? Yeah. Thank you. My cousin has been amazing. Let me know if you guys want my cousin again on the channel, because I think she did such a good